On this episode, we add the finishing touches to Triceratops Creek. Then, we recreate the enclosure home to 2 Smilodon. Big Cat Climb. Welcome to the ultimate wildlife sanctuary. Welcome to Prehistoric Park. What's up, guys? It's Moral again, back for another episode of Recreating Prehistoric Park. Today, we are going to be building Big Cat Climb, but first, we gotta finish off this Triceratops Creek, because the tractor was awesome. I like the tractor, but the enclosure left something to be desired. So, here we are. We're starting off by making the fence, and it was a little difficult to make. I had to keep looking at footage and making sure it was right and trying to find the right scale, which is really hard. I think we nailed it at the end though. So, thank you guys for the support on the last video. It was insane. Like, my most popular video by far was my last video. So thank you guys so much. And if anyone hasn't seen that one, look in the top if you want to watch it, or maybe in the description, it'll be in one of those places if you want to check it out. It was a really cool video. We built the tractor that Keeper Bob used on the Triceratops, which was a really interesting build to say the least. So here we're replacing the fence. Unfortunately, there's no barriers in this, not yet anyways, so it's a little difficult, but we make it work. There were a few things that were wrong with the enclosure. First of all, the fence, obviously. I mean, you can't beat that Prehistoric Park fence, honestly. So we replaced that. And then the gate was actually a little too far over. Because if you look in the series, there's only like maybe 3 meters worth of fence to the right of it. So we fixed that up. Here we are actually making the gate. And the gate actually has steel parts on it, which I didn't realize, I don't think. Because I thought everything was wood. But there are metal pieces in these fences. So we're finishing that up, and it's looking pretty good. We're gonna have to move the path in a second here so that it lines up with the gate actually, and they're not just somehow making a path for cars that goes through a solid fence. There we go. And so we put that through. We put a little closer to the creek too, and then do a little bit of terrain editing. And we also add more trees in on the left. Then we add these bushes, and that's about it. A little more left here, and then, oh yeah, I forgot all about this. We added the sign in. Not too hard. We just used some bamboo pieces and some either planks or like logs. I forget what they're called. But we just use the default lettering, and it works pretty good. It's a pretty close match, actually. So we just throw it on there. Not hard at all. And that's about it. And right into Big Cat Climb. This is a bit of a different enclosure, honestly. It's really small, honestly. But it makes sense, because when you go to a zoo, you don't see lions in like a 5 square mile exhibit, which is something, I don't know, like, it seems like in a lot of media like this, they give them like miles and miles of space, which they might not have needed so much of, because zoos have, well, good zoos at least, have very nice enclosures, but they don't have to be massive, and the animals are still enriched and they still feel at home. Obviously, there are some terrible zoos that like treat their animals poorly, but in the general sense, they don't really need all that space. So we took the fence from the Triceratops pen and we changed it here, but we had to edit it a little bit because it doesn't look exactly the same as the one in the Triceratops enclosure and I think T-Rex enclosure. But fixing that up, I have to say it looks pretty nice. Unfortunately, once again, we still need null barriers. For some reason, the Smilodon are able to just no-clip right through these fences. I've checked. I don't think they're just a gap. I don't think there's a gap that they can fit through. I think the game just does not recognize this as something that is blocking them. I mean, there are gaps like those, but a Smilodon is not fitting through those. It's also interesting. We have 2 pins for each animal instead of being together, which is really cool. I think this is one of the coolest pins in the series. It really feels like a conservation effort as opposed to like a Jurassic Park thing where you're just looking at the animals and they are, these theme park attractions. Because Suzanne actually goes in and gives them those climbing poles for enrichment, and she gives them tries to make a breeding program, and that goes successfully, which is just really cool things to me compared to Jurassic Park, where they just kind of are movie monsters. Which, no hate on Jurassic Park. I think Jurassic Park's a good series on its own, but it's a different style. We make the enclosure is actually even smaller than I had them originally too. Like, it's not a big enclosure. So we kind of just make room for the gate, make room for the animals. I don't think it's such a bad thing having these small enclosures. So here, we're just kind of trying to figure out where things go. There's these little shelters in the back, and I was having trouble pinpointing where they went. So I kind of guessed, and at first my thought was they were on the outside, like I am building here, but they're actually on the inside. So we figured that out real fast, and we fixed it. But it was really odd. But the thing that I didn't understand though was the enclosures it's a hard shelter, and it has a roof on it that it seems they can climb up, but if they can climb on the roof, I don't see how they can't just hop over the middle fence, which I don't know if that's an oversight, just something that no one thought of, or what, or maybe there was a good reason they couldn't get on top, but it seemed to me like a weird decision. So I kept looking back at the footage. That's why there might be pauses and stuff in here, or looking at screenshots. But we figured it out eventually. Maybe not yet, I don't know. And there's these gates, which we use sticks for. And I mean, these sticks admittedly might be a little flimsy for what this was, but I think they turned out okay. And it wasn't too much more strong of a gate than that. It was a little bit sturdier. But we put that in. Then we're just trying here to still figuring out proportions. It was really, really difficult. There weren't very good shots of everything in this. So here we are building the structure. There are a lot of pauses in this actually. I might have to remove some footage. There we go. So yeah. So here I realized that it was actually on the inside, which we fixed, and now it's right. Unfortunately, we couldn't actually stick her in there. Which is... It keeps saying a message, it's like something about nav mesh or native mesh, I don't know. I think it has something to do with the pieces around it. But unfortunately you can't actually stick her in there, and she doesn't actually use it for hard shelter, but it looks nice, so that's all that really matters. We're not too worried about game mechanics in this series. It's more for the aesthetics. And once we have this all copied over, we're gonna be able to just copy it over to the other side. And then there's no ramp on the male Smilodon side, so we do eventually remove that. Maybe not yet. I think it came later, but that's all we really had to do. For the most part, this is just a mirrored enclosure, other than the climbing other than the climbing frames, and there is a tree on the male side, which I hadn't noticed before, and that ramp. That's about it. Otherwise, it's a completely mirrored enclosure. I do hope eventually we get baby animals and we can have some baby Smilodon too. That'd be really cool. I know they're coming, I just don't know exactly when. Another thing, a little off topic from the Big Cat Climb structure, but it's about the series, so it's still sort of on topic. Some animals obviously we don't have in this game, and we won't have in this game, at least not from the list we have right now of what's supposed to be coming. For example, we don't have a terror bird, we don't have an Arthropleura, or a giant scorpion, or a giant dragonfly. So the plan for those is to make implied structures where the exhibit's all there, but the animal might not be. And then maybe one day, if they add them in eventually, which I don't know, I'm not really completely up to date on what all they want to do with this game, we will add them in then, hopefully. And they'll just stand as empty exhibits for now. We'll still put all the details in, obviously. We just won't have the actual animal moving and you can see them. And then for some other animals, we're going to have it where an animal will stand in for them. If you're a long-term subscriber, you might recognize stand-in animals as something we've done a lot. especially with the Walking with Dinosaurs server, where they would have certain eras of dinosaurs, but since there weren't all the dinosaurs in the aisle, they just use other animals to stand in. For example, I guess the best example is Valdovilla, the series I used to have, which is coming back actually. Oh, hopefully, eventually. Soon, maybe. But obviously, Valdosaurus is not an animal in that game, but it is a Wessex Formation Dryasaurid. So what we did was we used Dryosaurus to stand in for that. And it works really well like that. It's really a good way of circumventing not having certain species. And in this, we'll probably have it like Gallimimus will be standing in for like Ornithomimus. The Argentinosaurus will stand in for the Titanosaur. And I feel like there's some other examples I'm not thinking of, but that's basically how it's going to work. So hopefully we'll have a pretty full park. Even if we have a couple of implied enclosures and stand-ins, it should be fairly close. And now we get to start on the climbing structures. I copied these pretty much exactly from the show, like with everything else. I don't think they turned out perfect, but they are close enough where it's pretty indistinguishable. And it's very interesting climbing structure. It gives me a lot of ideas for like Planet Zoo and things, because when I build climbing structures, it's always like a platform here and a ladder here to the other platform, but this is just like logs placed together. It doesn't have to be something intricate. It doesn't have to be exactly like a platform. It's just, it gives me good ideas of what I can do. And I think they did do a lot of research into actual real life wildlife conservation efforts for this show, because a lot of it shows and it feels real when you compare it to something like Jurassic Park or something where it's kind of like a theme park, like I've said before. So they definitely did their research, which I expect nothing less of from the team behind this and the team behind Walking with Dinosaurs. It's a very good research put into it. So here, we've got the males down. The other side has a bit of a more complicated build of this climbing structure. Because the males is just like a triangle, or a pyramid, I mean. This one's a bit different. I think I prefer the female climbing structure to the males, but they're both interesting. So far, I haven't seen them use these, and I don't think they can, which is unfortunate. But it's not the end of the world. It still looks cool, and it does add a lot to the enclosure instead of just being a square. There's a lot of beams on this one compared to the males. I think they kind of skimped out on the man. I think he got the short end of the stick, literally. So there's a lot of pauses. I apologize for that. I kept having to look back at the footage and, make sure everything was right and make sure it looked right. Because this is not something easy to recreate, these like climbing structures, because they're very thrown together, it almost feels like, where it's kind of sticks upon sticks and they're all kind of nailed together real fast, all of that. So we finally actually got rid of that, and I think that's about calling it quits here. I think we're almost done. So we've got about a little bit more of time lapse. Just filling it around with the trees and stuff, really. Not much else on the pin. There is a little bit of a decline in the terrain right here, which we kind of emulated. It looked okay. And yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys after the cinematic shots. So that wraps up today's video. I hope you enjoyed this build. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like and comment and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.
You